Hey, it's Matt Pinfield here with Paul Weller, and here for the SoCal Sound. Paul is in town in Southern California and get ready to do three shows, two at the Orpheum, and there are still tickets available for the Saturday night show, and of course, the House of Blues in Anaheim. Paul, it is so great to see you, man. I just got to tell you,
Yeah.
there's pictures of you and I in 1982 when I first came to interview you. And I asked you and your dad at the New York Palladium, you were touring for the gift, if I could come and get an interview with you. And it was, your dad was so cool to me, and so are you. And it was amazing. We were at Trentwood War Memorial, which was, after the New York shows for the gift. And, it was just an incredible thing because I didn't have tickets for the show, and I was supposed to work that day. And you said to me, you go, "Are you staying around for the show?" And I said, "Oh man, I don't think so." He goes, "Oh, we'll sort you out, mate." And it was amazing. But one of the greatest things was, and I know you remember, Neil Lamont, who was he had brought a big VHS player, and we went back to your hotel room and we watched all the U.S. Appearances of the Jam on American Bandstand on Fridays, all this other stuff.
Yeah. Wow. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, yeah, it was amazing, and it was so kind of you because you had us back in your room. We went through your 45s. You turned me on to some cool soul 45s, and I found an old radio show that somebody had recorded, and I was talking about being there, and I put Bill Dale and Arundel's I've Been Hurt, which was a great old beach music song from the Carolinas, and it was just so great. And I was talking about that, and I'd forgotten that we'd gone through your records back then, so. Just want to tell you, incredible memories through the years seeing you with the Jam, seeing you with the Style Council, and of course, solo as well. Paul, this new record is great. 17th album, 66, you know, uh, and I love that you worked on this. It was a little different with the way you work because you've always been really kind of written by yourself on most of your songs, always. And here you got to write songs with a bunch of your friends.
Yeah.
And so talk to me about that. It was a situation where you decided you wanted some help with the lyrics and things like that. So talk to me about making that decision and how that transition was for you.
Um, well, I mean, in recent issues, I've done this similar sort of thing. I've co-written tunes with other people, which is something I never used to do.
Yeah,
But I think I was always kind of very guarded about my writing. It's just like this is my little thing, man, and you can't come into it, and like that. So in my old age, I guess I've relaxed from that, and I think also I was looking for what other people might sort of have to say in lyrics as well, because obviously the longer you do it and the more you do it, you can't help but repeat yourself sometimes, and that's really annoying. Even I'm conscious of doing it. It's just one of those things, through just doing it all the time. But so it was nice just to see what someone else would bring into it, would bring into the into the mix. And yeah, so that was the reasoning behind it, really. Yeah, just to work with other people and get other ideas coming in, and me interpreting their lyrics as well.
was it cool? I mean, you've obviously worked and been friends with Noel Gallagher for a long time, and
Mm.
done. I mean, you played on Oasis records, and he's done stuff with you, and I've always loved that relationship the two of you have.
Uh,
The story behind Jumble Queen is great. Like I didn't realize that you guys lived pretty close to each other, and you gave him a call, right? And he was literally you could see his house from where you were living at the time.
it's not quite like that, but it's around the corner anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are very close as neighbours, but I only see him once a year, maybe, or something like that. But yeah, I had this backing track for Jumble Queen, what became Jumble Queen, and I sent him this backing track and just said, "Have you got any ideas?" And I think he sent some lyrics back within, like, 20 minutes or half an hour or something like that. So, but they worked, and that's the thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And so working with Suggs too, Graham McPherson. Tell me about you because you had a friendship for years ago. You hadn't seen each other for a long time, but
Yeah.
there was a long-term friendship. Do you remember when you guys first met? Was it early on in the Jam years of the Jam? Was
Yeah.
it
It was way back, man. Probably at something like Top of the Pops, which is like an English pop show that used to be on every week for years and years and years. So I think we probably met Madness around that time. I think, sort of like uh, yeah, early 80s. Yeah,
Yeah.
with different TV shows. I think we maybe were on a bill together somewhere as well. But anyway, yeah, from
Yeah.
that time.
And then so like people like Dr. Robert, tell me about him because Blow Monkeys were a cool band and he was a really interesting writer and I think you had such a mutual love for soul music
Mm.
uh when he was starting out. I remember their first couple of records.
Yeah.
Tell me about that relationship and asking him to do lyrics as well.
How did that come about? Well, originally that song was Dr. Roberts, and he sent me it and said, would you sing on it? He was making a record under the name of something Social Club. I can't remember what it's called. Anyway, it was a compilation, so he got different singers in. He produced it all, but he got different singers and he sang a few tunes himself. So there was different artists on this record, and this was one of the songs that was going to be on the record on his record, Rise Up Singing. So he sent me the backing track, and I think with maybe a sort of scratch vocal on it. And I kind of basically kept a lot of his lyrics, but I just changed some of the melody and the chorus and stuff like that. And then that was actually put out last year on the with this under this compilation record, which just went totally under the radar. And I just thought, what a waste of a great song. So I said to Robert, is that okay if I redo it and put it on my album, which he was fine about. And that's how it come about, really. So it was initially going to be for his project.
Wow, I didn't realize that. That's incredible. It's kind of like I loved when you did One Way Road by Oasis because I always thought, that's a great song. Another song that, was a B-side that was really strong of Knowles. And I loved when you covered it. I thought it was just really cool. It was,
Yeah,
uh,
well, I've always liked his B-sides. I've always thought, the kind of the ones that you aren't so well known, but there's some great songs that he's written on for B-sides. And I always like that tune. I like that melody. And yeah.
yeah. I mean, obviously Talk Tonight you're a part of. So it was like, those things are such great tracks. And Paul, but working with Bobby Gillespie too. Tell me about that. Was there a friendship with Bobby for a while?
Yeah, yeah, I've known Bobby for a long time, man, since like early 90s. And
Yeah.
we played together before. I played on their records, and Bobby and Andrew Innes have played on some of my stuff before. Uh, so yeah, so he's someone who I see not regularly, but we're in contact still. And well, I just love him, man, as a person and as an artist. And same thing, man. I didn't have any words for this backing track, so I just said, "Have you got any ideas for this
Yeah.
tune?" And mainly on my demos, when I demo something up or working on things, I'll just sort of la a melody or sing a kind of nonsense or whatever, just to give an idea of how the phrase is and what the melody is. So everyone, Noel and Bobby, both kind of wrote to that as well, to the melody I put down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it stuff came out great, and it was
Yeah,
really cool that you did this. Paul, a song I always wanted to ask you about, a solo song that was on Modern Classics. I love Brand New Start, and I just never really got to talk to you about it. I've been sober like 4 years and 4 months now. And and
yeah,
that song was just, even as I was trying to get sober for a long time, it just felt like this. I connected with it in such a unbelievably personal way. I love those lyrics and your delivery of that song just absolutely
yeah.
leveled me. So I just wanted to tell you that. And I wanted to ask you about the song.
Uh, I wrote that song. I mean, it came out in the late 90s, I think, as a single, and it was on Modern Classic, like you say. But I wrote it because I was doing a benefit show for a homeless charity, like either Shelter or Centre Point, one of these organisations in Britain. So I wrote that song for that gig. Uh, so I guess I was thinking of someone trying to build their life back up again, someone trying to pick their life up. They've broken it all down through whatever, drugs, drink, or whatever, or misfortune. but it's about someone trying to reclaim themselves and trying to build a life and move forward, you know. So I kind of wrote it especially for this show, which I did play at the show as well, and I can't remember anything about it apart from that. But but a lot of people like that song, yeah. A lot of people relate to that tune. It's not that well known, I don't think, but it's a good song, yeah.
One of many great ones. It was recently was the anniversary of Long Hot Summer, and just what a beautiful, incredible song it was. I was playing it for my girlfriend recently. I said, "Listen to how soulful, how incredible this song is," and I heard some other people talking about seeing the documentary for the Style Council
Mm.
stuff. How is it when it came time to shoot that? Because there's in different stages and phases of your incredible career in songwriting. Was it good to actually get to talk about that stuff again and take a look back?
I thought it was very timely. That's the right expression. I thought it was a good time to for that documentary to happen because there's been a definite reappraisal of the Style Council uh, in England anyway, where we were hated and vilified towards the end. Uh, but I've seen some nice stuff written about us in recent times, about the Style Council in recent years. And I guess the distance of time and people were reappraising it after a length of time. And there was some good stuff in there, you know, it didn't all work. But we were always trying something different. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't work, you know. But we always tried to do something different every time, as much as we could anyway. But I thought the documentary was really beautifully done, and it was a nice little closing statement for me about the Style Council. It wasn't all rubbish. There was some great as
There were,
well.
listen, there were some great songs. When you look at, go back and listen to Paris Match and just, there are so many. And even B-sides, like, it just came to pieces in my hands. What an incredible song that is. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I stripped back, it's just like this song that could work in so many different ways, but it's beautiful.
I liked everything up until uh, the digital revolution happened, uh, sometime in the mid 80s, and then we stopped recording as a live band, you know, because everything prior 85 was all just done in the old school way, like just playing live in the studio in the live room. And then all of a sudden, the revolution happened in recording, and we spent more time in the control room on boxes and drum machines and all that stuff, you know. Uh, uh, so I think we kind of lost it a bit after that. But prior to that, it was organic and just free, you know, just try whatever we fancy trying, really. So,
Yeah.
so
I thought it was great. I mean, you shout to the top and you listen to all those songs. Obviously, my ever-changing moods meant so much to so many people. And I've met Paul, and you probably heard this from so many people. Their wedding song, You're the Best Thing, has been like at least 20 people's wedding song including my first marriage. So, it's just a brilliant, song. But so many of those things, they worked amazingly and solid bond and those records were great. And Boy Who Cried Wolf, which was only a single in the States, you know, uh, was just like, I mean, listen to how soulful and beautiful those records are. They're incredible records. I'm glad they've been reassessed by people because there's a lot of great stuff on this
and I
album.
think they're happy, man, you know, and I think yeah, so I'm happy. It makes me happy that they get people like it again.
Yeah, Paul, I got to also ask you, I love the fact that I recently discovered on a trip up to Italy to go DJ there, that there was a TV show called Malice in the UK that came out, and
Yeah.
also on Ted Lasso. One of the things whenever I hear anything Jam or Paul Weller related, I take it very personally. I'm very excited about it because I've always been for me. I've been a fan of yours, as you know, for it's going on. It's at least I close to half a century. So you know I love that. So when I heard Town Called Malice playing in the first episode of Ted Lasso, I got really excited. I'm like, yes. I mean, it's how, do you, for you. Is it really good to still see how many people relate to those songs and how much they mean to people and are still part of the canon of uh, of how people want to express their art and their feelings?
I think it's incredible, man. I think You know, when you were saying that, I was just thinking about all the shows we've played recently and like last night, and the reaction we get to, you know, even in America where I've never been successful record wise or anything, but the reaction to Shout to the Top or Ever Changing Moods and some of the old jam tunes as well. So it's a brilliant, beautiful thing for me, right? Because you know it wasn't like they were big hit records, and people just got to hear them however they got to hear them. I don't know. So, but they obviously mean so much to them, and I guess because they've grown up with them, and I think it's a beautiful thing, man. I'm very proud of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you know you should be so proud of that stuff. I mean, those records they mean so much to so many people, and I think it's interesting how a song like "Going Underground," like now more than ever, there's a lot of points in that song that the way the world has been going, it's like you could go and listen to some of the
Oh,
statements.
I think that about a lot of the songs when as I'm singing them, I think of
Yeah,
that my ever-changing moods and
yeah,
uh, and what's happening like in Palestine and Gaza and it's 40 years later, that song 40 years later is still relevant, unfortunately, but it still is, you know.
yeah.
That just mean the world doesn't change too much, I guess. I don't know.
You know, it's also, Paul, you know, if you think about, I think about the fact that you're only a few years older than me, and I've, you know, you were like, obviously you're a fan for a minute, but I remember the first time hearing "To Be Someone," didn't we have a nice time? And, you know, I look back and I think about it now and I say, you know, you were so wise for your age and just the insight that you had to write a song like that, because it was really about people kind of losing sight of what's going on that were in bands, getting kind of sucked up in things. It could happen to anything in life, could happen to people that were in sports, music, whatever. But it was just a brilliant song, even for that period of time for me. Always want to ask you, when you look back on that, do you realize how many things that you were writing at that period of time that had such an incredible relevance, but also why there was a reason why it just really cut through with people.
Well, I don't know, you know, because, you know, I certainly wasn't particularly mature as a person at that time. So, however, the maturity came out in the lyrics, possibly, but I don't remember living my life particularly in a mature way at that time. I was only like, you know, when I wrote that tune, I was like 20 or 21 or something like that, you know. Um, I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that, Matt, because my thing is like that's just what I do, you know. I just write songs and I don't think about it beyond that, you know.
Yeah.
There's no point. What's the point?
Yeah. No, I
There's
get it.
no point me trying to work out or figure out how did I write that or why, you know, what propels me to write songs. I'm just lucky and just give thanks and praise that that's what I do in life. And
Yeah.
on that, I don't know.
It's brilliant. I just wanted to, you know, bring up that point. Because I think that there's so many things that are still, again, throughout your career, whether it's on Wildwood or you know, or any of those records. I mean, there's so much stuff that is just so many people can still relate to, like myself. You know, I love that, Paul, and I'm excited that you're back in the States.
I
Are you having a good time on this tour? Are you enjoying it so far?
loved it. We were so glad to be back because it's been 7 years for us.
Yeah,
Uh, and we were all prepared to come over before that. About 5 years ago, we were going to, you know, but anyway, the tours kept getting put off because of COVID and all that. And then we couldn't come because it took America ages to lift the COVID ban. We were all anti-vax. Most of my band and me were all anti-vax, so we couldn't come anyway. So we came at the first opportunity we could, and but it's been amazing, man. And it doesn't feel like 7 years now, which is a good sign. And the shows have all been great and sold out, and it's just all been amazing. Yeah, I'll
yeah,
have to be. I should go away for 7 years more often, but I haven't got much time.
yeah. Well, I hope you have a lot of time, Paul. I really do. You know,
I'm
and
enjoying
yeah,
it.
and the set lists look great, man. They really do. You know, I want to thank you for you know, always taking the time to spend. It's you know, we've throughout the years we've done many interviews, and I've you know, again, I've always you know this how much I love you as a songwriter and artist. You know, and I just love that like I said, I'm on this great station, SoCal Sound, where I get to play everything. There is pro A day doesn't go by, Paul, 5 days a week in the afternoon that people in Southern California do not hear a Paul Weller related song. And I
Uh,
mean that, I keep,
Bless you.
and again, thank you for treating me so good when I was a kid, if you,
Remember me and you, just quickly, I could always, I can picture me and you outside. I think it was in New Jersey. There was a big fire escape staircase going up to the gig. And I was
yeah,
chatting. I made the
yeah,
first.
that was a big moment for me. It was during around Wildwood, and we were outside. I was running that radio station, and we were just talking about life, and and just things like our kids, and you know, music, but also like some of the things in life. And that was an incredible moment for me because I left that night and I went, "Do you know one of my heroes?" And I were just talking about stuff that's going on in our lives. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment for me, and something I'm very, very grateful for. And when you let me bring you on stage too in New York City, because I went backstage and you were like, I said, you want me to do an intro tape or something? You go, no, no, mate, bring us straight on. That was another beautiful night because I was a kid at the Palladium and at the Ritz watching you, on the other shows, so it was great to see it come through. So, Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure, mate. And always good to see you and hear from you as well.
Yeah, always, Paul. It's and just I'm keeping it alive, and people at the station, not just myself, they love you, and you're always getting a lot of love there. So I just wanted you to know. So I'll see you on Friday night, and hopefully get to come back and just quickly say hello to you as well.
I will, yeah. Yes, nice. All right, Matt. I'll see you then, man.
All right, thank you so much, Paul. Great to see you, Paul Weller, everyone, right here on SoCal Sound. Don't forget, he's playing, of course, Thursday, happening at the House of Blues in Anaheim, Friday and Saturday at the Orpheum in LA. And tickets are still available. There's few tickets left for the Saturday show. Make sure that you pick them up, and I hope to see you there.